going on, guys? Hope y'all are having a great day out there today. So today we're doing a little bit of shop work, mainly just on one car. This thing today took an absolute beating, guys, at the skate park. Typhon 6S, man. This is pretty much one of my top favorite cars just to send it. I mean, this thing just flies like a rocket. Maybe one of the last videos you guys seen this thing at the skate park. I mean, I wish I had the new GPS on this thing to find out the altimeter and the height of that thing, because it was soaring, guys. I mean, this thing just flew. Anyway, so I did break a few things on it while I was at the skate park. As we all know, skate parks are kind of hard on these things. But anyway, what I wanted to work on tonight here was mainly the differentials. Ever since I got this thing, I haven't really done a lot with the diffs on this thing yet. I did silicone plug the center diff on this thing, but I haven't really serviced the front or rear diffs yet. I did check the back and shim it when I first got it, but I haven't changed the oil and all that things. So that's what we're kind of working on tonight, is just tearing the diffs apart, servicing them, and getting them back in there. I do have a new wing mount coming for the back of this thing because it got busted, as you can see. The tires on this thing held up pretty good. I did get this back one here, though. I'm pretty sure the foam tore loose inside because it came really unbalanced. But I have a new set of the Proline MX2s, I think they are, coming for this thing. So they'll be going on this thing here very soon. But also, I don't know if you can see that on camera. Probably can, I think. But I also did bend the chassis finally in the back of this thing. I mean, it came down hard, guys. Really hard on the back corner on a couple of those launches. And also, I got a new chassis coming for this thing. I was going to get like an M2C or something like that. You know, the M2C chassis is like $140 for this thing. I went on eBay and I found a brand new chassis from Arrma for this thing for $20. So I decided, you know, it took a nasty hit is what caused that thing to bend, so I'm putting another Arrma chassis under this thing. If that bends again at some point, maybe I'll look at upgrading it. But, you know, these things are pretty stout, usually, but the skate parks are rough on them, as we all know. The other thing that I did have bend here is, trying to see if I can get some light down in there, is the front drive shaft. You can see that it's pretty well tweaked. I have a new drive shaft coming for this thing. I'm going to do a whole tear down basically at some point here as soon as the new chassis shows up, and change everything out, obviously, and put it underneath the new chassis. But I wanted to mainly just tear out the diffs here and get these things serviced for now, because I don't want to deal with all of it later. So I'm going to kind of do some of this in stages and work on the diffs here. But I've been yakking for almost 3 minutes, and I apologize. But anyway, let's get these diffs torn out and get working on this thing. Guys, I'm going to pull the center diff out of this thing first so I can get the bent drive shaft out of it. And I'm going to check the fluid inside of this thing. It has silicone earplugs, but I want to make sure they're still in one piece, kind of, you know, so it's not spinning, because I did notice still some ballooning going on in the front wheel. So I'm going to yank the front out, get this drive shaft out of here, and then I'm going to pull the front diff out. Is especially the first one I want to take a look at, because this one has never been looked at all. All right, guys, we're going to pop open the center diff here and take a look inside here and see what it looks like. I definitely want to check out the front diff here and see what that thing looks like next. But you know, I'm kind of surprised. I was spinning this thing and it still was moving pretty freely, which kind of surprised me. It didn't feel like the normal earplug. It has gotten pretty broke down in there. So I'm probably going to clean this out a little bit and stick another earplug in there, because as you can see, oops, sorry, it's spinning a lot freer than it should be. So I'm going to stick some new earplugs in this thing. Alright, guys, well, got another earplug rammed in there. Got most of it. Had to take a tiny bit out of there, but most of the earplug fit in there. I rammed it down in there and kind of squeezed it down in there with a screwdriver around the edges. Wasn't going to bore you guys with all of this, but that's all I do, just ram it all down in there. It's probably going to be a nice tight fit, but I'd rather it be that than going on what was happening, because I noticed those front tires ballooning a bit today. So I knew that earplugs had to have been breaking down. I need a new gasket, but not a big deal because there's no actual fluid in this thing. But I'm going to go ahead and get this thing lined back up again on there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get the screws in this thing, and I'll bring you guys back in a moment. Alright, guys, well, we got her all back together again. There's just a very tiny bit of give. It's a little stiffer than actually even normal right now, but I'm sure it'll break in with a run or so and give a little bit more give in there. But it's definitely a little tighter in there than I actually like, but I'm going to let it break down because I had the other one nice and tight, and it eventually broke down. So I'm going to go ahead and get this back in the car. And I've got a new front driveshaft coming, center driveshaft coming, but I tapped this one with a hammer a few times, and I'll tell you what, it's amazing what you can do with a hammer. It's straightened out pretty decent. But I'm going to tear this car down, like I said, completely anyway to change out this chassis. So I'm just kind of messing around and mainly just doing diff service tonight and making sure those are good to go back in there when I get the new chassis. And while you're in there, obviously check over all your gears, make sure everything's in good shape. All my bearings, I do have newer sealed bearings on all these. Everything's moving nice. Everything feels nice and tight. So the center diff, I think, is ready to go back in and ready for some more bashing. But I'm going to go and pull the front diff out now, and we'll work on that next. All right, guys. Well, we're ready to pull the front diff off. What I usually do is pull the two hinge pins from the top A-arms out. I can't remember if I got to pull the shocks off of this thing in order to do this on this car. I think you do, because these won't even come out the whole way unless these are out of the way. These screws are kind of in the way. So you do have to pull the shocks off, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And I'll bring you guys back in a minute. Alright, I just pulled the bottom hinge pins out of the shocks, flipped them out of the way, and now allows me to pull that pin out of there. Make sure you don't lose the little plastic washers that are down in here. I just dropped one. Where'd it go? They always seem to vanish. Don't lose those things. Takes up all your slack into your upper A-arms so that you don't get a bunch of slop up in there. But pull those out of the way, and then you kind of get a lot more room. You get your drive shaft out of there, and makes it just a lot easier to get this diff out. You can do it with either pulling, one of your pillow balls out. You can do it that way also, but honestly, this just seems to be easier. I've been trying different methods and doing different ways, and this way just seems to be the easiest out of all of them so far. I'm trying to find that last spacer. It seems to have disappeared into nowhere land. I'm going to try not to make this video too long, guys, but next I'm going to go and pull out the 4 screws, these ones right here, and that'll give me access to the front dip. You also got to disconnect your sway bar on one of the sides. Alright, well, got the 4 screws out of there. I got the sway bar retainer out of the way and off of there, and now could pop the cap off, and now we got access to the front diff. So, I'm going to take us out of there. I don't remember if I've checked if this was even shimmed or not. I cannot honestly remember about the front diff on this thing. But that's it. Oh yeah, man, it doesn't feel like there's really anything in this. It definitely needs some heavier fluid or new fluid in there. It's probably another reason why it's ballooning so bad. It's just really got way too much slip in there. So I'm going to go ahead and open this thing up, and I'll bring you guys back when I get her opened up. Alright, well, we got the screws out of her, and yeah, that thing is really low on fluid. I didn't think that I checked this front on this thing when I first got it, but honestly I could be wrong, because I thought I had serviced the front and the rear on these, or changed the fluid in it whenever I was using it on the indoor track, but I might be wrong. But anyway, it's way low, so I'm going to go ahead and clean some of this out of here, and we're going to get some new fluid in her. I don't remember who showed me this trick. I remember it was somebody's video about cleaning these out if you don't want to tear them all completely apart. But basically, if you just stick a rag or a paper towel and kind of push it down in the top and then spin it, it just runs all the gears right through the paper towel and gets everything out. And as you can see, she is nice and cleaned out. So we're going to go ahead and get some fluid in this thing. I think I'm going to put the 50,000 in the front of this. I have some of this Team Losi Racing 50,000 weight fluid in here, so I think we're going to go ahead and fill her up with this stuff, guys. I put it in many of the other cars, so I think this is going to be what I'm going to do. So it's going to take a second, obviously, for this stuff to settle, but I'm going to let it squeeze in there. We're going to let this settle down, and I'm going to bring you guys back whenever she's all back together, or at least settled. Alright guys, well she's all filled up again, so I'm going to go ahead and get the cap on there. Feels pretty decent, so I'm going to get the cap on there and see how this fluid change feels with the new gears, and well, not new gears, but it cleaned out, because that other fluid was definitely just really beat. Alright guys, well we got her back together here. I'm just kind of going over the screws by hand real quick, making sure everything's all tightened down, but she feels good. And definitely got to be a little better than what was in there, that's for sure. But I mean, it definitely feels a lot better now. A little bit of stiffness, it's got a nice little bit of grab in there, but it still does, turn nice and easily. So this feels like pretty good in there. So we're definitely going to go with this and see how she runs next time with this in there. I'm going to go ahead and get this back in the car, and then we're going to rip the rear diff out of this thing next. So guys, I was just putting the diff back in here again, and I noticed it does have a little bit of play on here. So I'm going to add one shim to this side onto the bearing gear side and see how it feels with this in there, because I definitely noticed a little bit of slop in there, and I definitely want to get rid of that. Also, make sure whenever you have these things apart, you check over all your gear teeth. If you're missing even one gear, one of the teeth on the gear are even chipped or knocked off of there, you might as well honestly just change it out, because it's just going to continue on. It's just going to keep breaking the next one, and then you're going to have it completely chewed up. So keep an eye on those teeth. Well, that one shim fit perfectly. Make sure you're careful getting those things in there so that you don't bend it, because it has to go between the bearing and the little groove that's in the front differential case there. But she fit nice and tight in there. There is no more slop at all from side to side, because that's what you're trying to get rid of, is the side to side movement. And it's nice and snug now, feels nice, moves nice and free. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of grease in this thing and get her back together. And guys, this is the grease that I've been using in all my diffs. I ordered it off of, I don't know, Amazon or eBay or something like that. Your local parts store and places like that will have them. But it's a marine grease. It's a waterproof stuff, so it seems to hold up in there really well. Everything that I've been putting this in so far, it's been working out really nicely. But just, probably can't see this too well, but just give all the gears a nice little coat. Make sure it's nice and greased up. Don't want to go too crazy, but make sure you give a nice coating on the whole entire, all the gear. And make sure it's nice and lubed up. That feels pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and slap the case back on this thing, get the front back together. And now I'll bring you guys back when we're tearing the rear one out or something. All right, guys. Well, got everything all back together again. Got our diff case, the front housing back on there. Got our drive shafts in. Got the shocks mounted back up on the hinge pins down below. Everything feels pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and now work on the rear diff. I'm just tightening down, and don't forget the screws that hold your retaining pins in for your shocks. Make sure you wind those all the way back down in again, or you will lose those hinge pins. And don't ask me how I know. But get both of these wound in here. And the front end is all done. So I feel a lot better knowing the center is now, got the ear plugs back in it again, and the front's got new fluid in it, and now a little bit heavier fluid. It's got a little more tension in there, might reduce a little bit of that ballooning. So I'm going to go ahead and get the back torn out, and I'll bring you guys back when I see what the back looks like. All right, guys. Well, I got the everything torn off the back here. I got the old broken wing mount off of here. I disconnected, pulled each screw out of each of the top tie rods, camber links, whatever you want to call them. Pulled those out, and now you drop your drive shafts out of there. A lot easier to work on. The drive shafts still look pretty straight. So those things actually, these drive shafts, for the length of them, I think it definitely helps them not bending. But drive shafts look good. Got the 4 screws out of the rear diff case here. Got the sway bar disconnected. We can go ahead and pop the rear cover off of this one now. And I do see a shim on this one. But this one actually doesn't feel too bad. Maybe I had just serviced the rear one, but this one actually feels pretty decent still. But I'm going to pop it open real quick and take a look at it. Alright guys, we got the screws out of this thing. So, yeah, this one was definitely filled up, because this one isn't quite as low, but it is a tiny bit low. So I'm going to go ahead and let this one drain out and clean the old stuff out of here, and we're going to put some new, probably 100,000 in the rear on this thing. Alright, got pretty much all the old grease cleaned out of there. I wouldn't call this a full disc service. I'm not pulling all the spider gears and sun gears and stuff out of here. While I'm in here, obviously check the sun gears. It's good to check behind them and make sure that the pins behind here have not sheared off, because that is kind of a common problem. And, you'll all of a sudden lose one side of the drive on, one of the wheels will just be free spinning. I've had it happen a couple times already this summer. But, you can go ahead and pull all that stuff out of there. I'm honestly not worried about it because I'm not having any issues or any noise at the moment. I'm just wanting to change the fluid and kind of take a look at everything and make sure everything looks good before I transfer everything over to the new chassis. But I'm going to go ahead and get this one filled up with fluid, and I'll bring you guys back when she's done. And I am using this, it's called Factory Team 100K. Using it in pretty much all my cars. I've used this stuff, and it works pretty good. So far, I've been pretty happy with this stuff. Okay, guys, well, she's all back together again. Got the screws in it. I'm going to go ahead and leave the single shim on here and, fit it up there and see if that still makes it nice and tight. The diff cups, are not too worn. They still look pretty decent on this thing, so I'm not going to worry about changing those out. Sometimes you will start getting these really out of round. You can see that one's starting to there. But I'm going to run it for a little bit more before I worry about changing these out. But I'm going to go ahead and get this back in the car, and we're going to get it back together. Also, guys, when you're working and having these things out, make sure you check your pinion gear on the inside here and make sure all the teeth look good on that thing and none of those are chipped or worn. Like I said, this car isn't very old. This one still looks really good shape. Make sure there's bearings in there. You don't have any play up and down. You can grab a hold of the cup on the inside here and wiggle it up and down and make sure you don't have a bunch of play and make sure those bearings aren't going bad. But I'm going to go ahead and get the diff back in here again and see what she feels like. I got to kind of tilt it on its side. It's easiest to do that way whenever you're putting the shim in there. That way the shim basically lays down flat when you're putting it in the car. It makes it a lot easier, so I'll bring you guys back when I get it in there. And this is what I mean, guys. If you tilt it on its side like this, and that way the shim naturally wants to lay flat, it makes it a lot easier getting it down into that groove. But they still got the one shim in there, and there is zero play with that one shim, so seems like one shim on the front and the back seems to be what works out great on this one. Every car can be slightly different. The tolerances can be off on the differential housing down there, and you might need no shims. You could need 2 or 3, so it all depends on the car. So it's definitely a by car, thing you got to do with checking them. You can't just say, oh, well, every car needs one shim. It doesn't really work that way. So on this one, it is one shim per car, but on yours, it might need more or less. All right, well, we got her all greased up in there, as you can see. And I'm going to go ahead and get our housing put back on there again. And sometimes these can be a little bit of a fight, getting them especially on the shim side. So you just take your time. Don't force them because you can end up bending that shim if you try to force it on there too much. Usually trying to kind of go this corner heavy first, because you notice down here in the bottom, there's these little tiny little notches. Kind of hard to see, but right down there, there is little notches that kind of have to sit down in the diff cup first. So it's easiest to get this corner down in there first and then push it down in. And it should all snap in. And it does look like it's seated good everywhere. So I'm going to go throw the screws in this thing, get her back together, and I'll bring you guys back when she's all finished up. All right, guys. Well, she is all back together. So we got new 50,000 weight in the front. We got new 100,000 in the rear. We got the center diff filled up with new silicone earplugs. And like I said, guys, I wasn't going to do this as a video. I was going to do it on a live stream. But honestly, right now, my work schedule is very sporadic, and I don't know, when I'm going to be home one day from another. So I kind of wanted to put together and get this thing fixed up and, put a little content out there if anybody's interested in working on theirs. Maybe it's the first time you guys are trying to tear apart, the discs on the 6S. I didn't go step by step. I know, I apologize, but honestly, the videos get very long and time consuming. But, anybody out there messing around with it, hopefully it was a little bit helpful. But we'll have the new tires here for this thing here in a couple days and a new chassis. Maybe I will do a live stream, hopefully, with swapping this car over to the new chassis and everything. But for now, at least all the differentials are serviced, new oil in them, and everything looks pretty good. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. But until next time, y'all, be safe, be careful out there. Peace out, everybody.